Everybody smiles in the same language. A smile, let your light come shining through.
Welcome to the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast. I'm Sandra M., coming to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico, the land of enchantment. I interview people from all parts of the world about what happiness means to them. What are they in love with? In each episode, we'll give you a key to happiness to include in your life. And of course, we'll play a happy tune from my live Celebrate Happiness Roadshow.
A smile doesn't cost you anything.
Today we're talking with Paula Francis, a happiness walker, a writer, and an architect of peace and happiness. As a mother of 3 beloved grown daughters, Paula has always looked to improve the lot of society and co-founded Gross National Happiness USA, all of which led to walking around the USA talking to individuals and community groups about happiness. To quote Paula, the trek became a personal pilgrimage as much as a project, a journey that changed me down to my DNA. Wow. Welcome, Paula. I'm excited to talk with you about happiness.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, Sandra. It's a pleasure to reconnect with you.
Yes, it's been a long time, hasn't it?
Yes, I actually walked into Santa Fe and met you there years ago now. But you were one of the people that I met that have stayed in my life since the beginning of the walk. So thank you so much for staying connected and keeping the focus on happiness.
Absolutely. I mean, I believe that happy people make happy choices. That's my tagline on everything I do. So I want to say to you the first question that I always ask everybody before we get into all these wonderful stories I'm sure you have as you walked around the country. But first, tell me, if you would, and the audience, what does happiness mean to you? I mean, is it a passion that you have? How would you talk about it?
Well, the way I talk about it is happiness being more than just a simple emotion, positive emotion, but something that's more sustained, like a contented state of well-being. That's how I talk about and think about happiness. And in the happiness research field, they call that eudaimonia. So when I walked around the country talking to people about happiness, that's where I'm reaching. I'm reaching for that essence of what really sustains our well-being.
Wow. And what did you find? I mean, do various people have different types of interpretations of that essence?
Oh, well, you would think with the diversity of our country that it might be all over the place, but actually it wasn't at all. We end up having pretty much the same values. And
wow.
my vision of for the happiness walk was to identify our values in this country, much like they do in Bhutan, which is the where Gross National Happiness was birthed. And when I heard about GNH, I said, oh my gosh, this has to be here in the United States, but it really cannot be the same as what's in Bhutan. We need to find out what the values are here in the United States. So I went about asking people, and I started with the question, what makes you happy? But that really wasn't getting to the answer, the deep answers that I was seeking. So we ended up talking more about values. And yes, because what I found in my research was that when people are living their lives in accordance with their values, they are more likely to be happy. And those that get distracted from their values tend to be struggling with happiness.
Wow.
And unfortunately, the things that people say they truly value aren't always what we're able to focus on or people feel able to focus on in their lives. And those things that people say are important aren't really that surprising, Sandra. There are relationships and our connections, of course. It makes sense. But also our psychological well-being. And in that category, I put love. And, of course, that's connected to our relationships, but it's also connected to all the other things in life that we love, the environment, the animals, that sort of thing. So education, our culture, our community vitality, our health, those things truly matter to people in a very consistent way, according to my research. But the thing that really surprised me and hadn't been mentioned in other happiness research, as far as I know, was how much our spirituality matters to us. Yes. So the more we are aligned with those values, and the more that we live out our lives in accordance to those values, I think these are the things from which happiness arises.
That's really profound. I mean, I think everybody that I've interviewed has not connected values necessarily with happiness, but they have connected their passions, what they have passion for, whether it be their work or their relationships or their interactions with day-to-day living. Sometimes it's very simple things that people are passionate about, and then a lot of people are very creative, and so they're passionate about their art and about their music. And then they go from there. They'll say, like I will interview a musician, and they will tell me that your music is the essence of all things, that type of thing, and that they love music, and it opens the heart, it opens the soul, and connects them to the unknown. Literally, one man did say it connects them to the unknown, which to me is sort of the area of spirituality. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I would say that's true. I would say that following your passion is incredibly important, because what you're passionate about is, to me, what you're meant to follow in this lifetime, at least for the moment, as much as it moves you to follow that passion, because sometimes that changes over time. But that to me is when you're following your passion, people talk about being in the flow. Right? Being in the flow of life. And that is about being absolutely present in the moment. It's where no time exists. And to me, that takes on a spiritual bent, if you will.
Yes.
Just being absolutely present with what is in front of you. And following your passions is a way, it's a path for doing that.
For doing that, yes. So did you have a passion for, how did you come to the idea that you were going to, as you say, start a project where you're going to walk, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you walk through every state in the United States?
Not every state. I think in the end it turned out to be 35 states.
Okay.
So it was, I circumvented the country. I didn't hit every single one of them. And that wasn't the intention. In fact, it wasn't my intention to walk 10,000 miles at all. So my passion...
10,000 miles? Wait a minute. That just went very quickly. You did 10,000 miles?
Yes.
Join Sandra M. at her live performance of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, a toast to love and happiness in life. It's an uninhibited musical adventure Sunday, February 4, 3 p.m. at the Santa Fe Women's Club. Our next adventure is guaranteed to awaken your happiness vibe. Celebrate with upbeat rhythms, love songs, special guests, and fun stories, some told by you in the audience. Enjoy Todd Lowry, Sandra's musical guest and accompanist, singing his happy and hopeful originals. To celebrate happiness with Sandra M. and the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, email sandra@sandramcknight.com. Stay tuned for ticket information and save that date, Sunday, February 4, 3 p.m. to celebrate happiness with Sandra M.
And how long did that take you?
Well, I did it in sections, so I didn't do it all at once because I never set out to do this. It was something that it came to me as I was following my passion, right? Mm-hmm. It just built and built into this larger project. So for me, my passion remains doing my part in this lifetime to bring more peace and love into this world. And when I heard about GNH and having that as a metric for determining success and progress in a country, I thought, oh, this is a way. This is a way to move closer, in my view, to peace and love in this country. If we really focused on the things that matter, much like for an individual to focus on the things that matter to them, their values. So it's the same for an individual as it is for a country. That was my thinking. So in order to figure that out, what these values are, what should undergird our policies and practices in the United States, I needed to ask people that live here. So I started with a short walk, actually, with a friend, walking from Vermont down to Washington, D.C., and it just grew from there because the conversations were so amazing, so impactful, and I felt that the conversations themselves were as important as the data that was being collected. So one thing led to the other, one leg of the walk to the next, and eventually I just kind of threw up my hands and I said, okay, it looks like I'm just going to change my life around a little bit and walk around the country, which is what I did. And I started in 2012 and I ended in 2019, oddly enough, right before the pandemic hit. So I was able to finish this project and then spend the 2020 reviewing and analyzing the data, and then also writing a book about it.
Right, and I was just going to bring that up. 18 pairs of shoes you wore out, I'm assuming 18 pairs of shoes. Is that why it's titled that?
It is titled that. It's also the most common question that people ask me when I met them for the first time is, how many shoes have you worn? And, you are the first person to know this. I just today finished editing an audiobook of 18 Pair of Shoes. So that should be available in a couple of weeks. That was exciting for me.
Absolutely. I'm a great audio book listener. Is it going to be on Audible or all the major places so that we can find it?
I believe all the major places. This is a new venture for me. I've never done this before, so my assumption is yes, that will be true. Of course, it will be on Amazon. That I do know,
right.
But I do believe on some of those other outlets. Yes.
Well, Amazon is Audible. That I know, right?
Okay.
So I'll be able to listen to it instantaneously. Right?
Wonderful.
Because, yes, can you give us a little tidbit? Because I'm interested in, you said, okay, the stories that you were hearing from people going from Vermont to Washington, D.C., were so interesting. It wasn't just the data, like they value this, they value that. And that's another thing. Do people in, say, the East Coast value different things than the West Coast or the Midwest? Or are the values basically the same? That's question one. Question two, could you share some of these interesting stories that just we'll find out when we listen to your audiobook or read it?
Well, you would think that maybe there would be differences around the country, and what I found was there really aren't. That we typically value the same things, and that's the list of, the relationships and spirituality, etc., that I talked about. And that was rather consistent. How we talk about them may vary slightly according to region.
Yes.
But I think that's good to know, because I think we need to have an open heart, an open mind, and listen well to people to hear the commonalities of what we're saying, rather than going to the differences and trying to find, to dissect, how things are not connected, when mostly we are connecting.
Yes, most of us want to have good relationships.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
Or happy relationships, or peaceful. Like the Dalai Lama says, he inspired me tremendously. I follow him on the Facebook, of course. He's on the Facebook, can you imagine? And he does, I listen. And then through the Mind Life Institute, which he has been connected with for a long time, Mind and Life Institute, I should say. And so he talks about, he says, we have 8 billion people on the planet, and most people really want to be peaceful and happy. They really do. That's just a basic thing that people want in their life. And so now the question is, we need to get there, right? And so you're basically saying that on your walk and talking to people, you found that there was a great deal of commonality, right?
Yes, but people didn't feel that. People have, not everybody, but there are some people that have this perspective that we are very different, and that they allow those differences or perceptions of differences to get in their own way, basically. So the conversations that we had, the ones that kept me going day after day after day, were the ones that kind of stopped people in their tracks to be reflective and to look at their own lives and whether their values are really being played out day to day, and to listen to people who might say things a little bit differently, might have different perspectives on life, and to see that what the Dalai Lama says, we are mostly wanting the same things. So how do you make that bridge between what we want and then taking the steps to get there? And when you see that, there are you have a lot of partners on this earth wanting to move in that same direction. You know, we just need to have the will to take those steps forward.
So you definitely have the will. I mean, obviously you went to Bhutan. You were very changed, I would imagine, or inspired by the way they live there. I've been there myself, so I equally was inspired. I never would have come home. I was interviewed by the uncle to the king on the radio there when I was there. And, you know, he said to me, why did you come to Bhutan and so forth? And I was answering. And then I just sort of spontaneously said, oh, you know, if I could stay here, I would never leave. And he was sort of taken back, and he said, why is that? And I said, well, I just feel like it's home. I feel very, very comfortable here. And he said to me, well, you know, our society is built on cooperation, not competition. And that's one of the big things, that people can relax in the fact that he didn't use these words, but in my mind I was thinking, yes, you always feel that someone has your back, that everyone in the country is working together to achieve whatever they're going to achieve. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have issues, that people don't get cancer and other issues. You know, there's trauma that happens, but nothing on the scale that happens in our country. So I just felt very comfortable and open. And then, of course, I'm a great lover of animals, a great lover of animals. I could say that 400 more times. And, of course, they are so connected to the earth and to the you know, not only the earth, but the environment that they live in and the animals. They don't kill animals, etc. I just thought, this is like a paradise.
We invite you and yours to an intimate 14-day happiness journey to Bhutan, the lost kingdom of happiness, coming in May of 2024. Experience the magnificent beauty, magic, and mystery of this ancient culture that calculates the gross national happiness of its people. Happiness, Bhutan style, is an adventure of a lifetime. Go to BhutanLostKingdomTours.com and click on Special Tour Packages to download your itinerary for Being in Love with Life, a happiness journey to Bhutan with Miss Sandra McKnight. And remember, celebrate happiness with Sandra M.
Yes, I think what you felt is what I felt, the familiarity of the values. Again, I think you saw it played out in front of your eyes. I truly believe we can do that here in the United States, that we don't have to travel around the world to see it. We can create those same conditions here. And like you said, they're not ideal in Bhutan. They're certainly not ideal here in the United States, but we can work to creating those conditions here. But we need to start talking about it and having dialogue about it and affirming what futures we want together, and not abdicating our will or control to external entities or people or governments. We need to take charge of that and create it on an individual basis. But that ripples out. What you do ripples out, and can create real positive and sustainable change. But you have to believe that's possible. You have to believe that's possible.
Okay, so now how would you think that we could, or people in the country, what would make people believe that's possible in your mind? I mean, you've traveled, you've talked to a lot of people, they want to do these things, you've written a book about this. Is there any kind, other than the data that we've collected, the data has to lead to some kind of action, right? I mean, that's why we collect data.
Exactly. Well, that is absolutely the hope. I am a true believer, though, that change starts with the individual. It starts
Yes.
with myself. And if I am living in accordance with my vision in my heart, and being a kind and loving person myself, then, I can't expect anybody else to behave that way if I'm not behaving that way. So it has to start on a person-by-person level. So getting to sweeping changes in the country, I think the conversation is another place to start, and that is what inspired me along the way, is having these conversations where people would tear up with having these, just talking about the things that really mattered to them. So we've got a great desire for positive change. So I think the more that we share that vision with one another, the more it'll grow, the more acceptable it will be to have these shared visions. And then from there, who knows what can happen? I believe in the power of magic, that from those positive conversations and events and communion with people, that we can make small changes maybe, but sometimes they evolve to larger ones. I mean, that's
right. So, go ahead.
No, I just think that we're not taught very well in this country to have these deep conversations. We're taught more how to debate with one another, and
yes.
that's so that leaves one person being right and another person being wrong. It's too much of a dichotomy as opposed to bringing together of our visions, which is the place I think we need to go.
So this has been a fascinating conversation with you, Paula. I so appreciate you being here. And I just thought maybe you have some last words to say about believing, because, I'm trying to think of what is it, in the Macy's Day Parade on Thanksgiving, right? They have all the most enormous sign that you can even imagine, right? And it says "Believe" across the front of their building in New York City. And I just think to myself, every time I watch the parade, right, and you see all those floats coming down and the bands and so forth and so on, and then they always have a couple of shots of this sign, "Believe, believe." And that's such a powerful word, right? Because if you believe in something, then you seek after what you want. Am I wrong on that? What do you think?
Well, a belief is nothing but having thoughts that are consistent and long term. They turn into beliefs. So if you have a thinking that is antithetical to peace and love, that can be a strong belief as well. So what I feel we need to do, or the last thing that I would like to say, is that we each have the ability to choose happiness, that we don't have to wait for somebody's declaration that you can be, or outer conditions to support us being comfortable or having a sense of a positive emotion. We don't have to wait for that. We have to choose ourselves to be happy, and then live that way. Feel it and take action based on that. So,
so true.
Yeah.
Like I always say, happiness is an inside job, right?
Absolutely. absolutely is. Yeah. And from
Thank
the
you so
inside
much.
job, yeah, the outer will happen.
Yes, exactly. And we've learned that from the pandemic. I think many people, having to be in your house for 2 years, I do believe, has given people a lot of time to really go inward and think about a lot of things. And so I know it did that for me, and I have a lot of friends who feel the same. I thank you so much for being on Celebrate Happiness Roadshow and expressing all your thoughts and ideas about happiness. And I mean, you have actually walked 35 states, did you say? I think I wrote that down. Yes, 35 states, and spoken to people, and the whole concept of connecting values and choosing happiness and then taking action. Thank you so, so much, Paula.
Well, thank you, Sandra. I really appreciate this conversation. And I appreciate all you do.
And we're going to get your book. You're welcome. But we want to get your book, right? Okay. What is it again? 18
Pair of Shoes, Adventures of a Happiness Walker. It can be found on paulafrancis.com.
And also on Amazon, right?
And on Amazon. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Weekly Keys to Happiness, number 15. Get into nature. Spending 30 minutes or more a week in green spaces can help lower blood pressure and tendencies to depression. Your green space could be your neighborhood park, your own backyard, or a rooftop garden. Anywhere you can appreciate some nature and fresh air. Better yet, add some outdoor exercise for an extra happiness benefit.
Newsflash! Remember to sign up for your personal copy of the Keys to Happiness. It's easy. Go to sandramcknight.com and click on Keys to Happiness. Thank you for tuning into the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow with us. And if you enjoyed the conversation, please help build our happiness community by sharing this podcast with friends and family. And before we go, I'd like to thank today's guest, Paula Francis, the Happiness Walker, for sharing her happiness story. To share your happiness story on the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast, send an email to sandra@sandramcknight.com.
Turn your smile on, you can't go wrong. You'll find that love